Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Puppies are going to try to come up here. Well, maybe not. Maybe my trick worked with putting a couple treats on the couch. Maybe. Welcome to Old Hollywood with Annette. If you're new here, I'm Annette. And today, if you cannot tell, we're doing Grace Kelly. Anything to put on a tiara. Anything. Got to do it with Audrey. Now I get to do it with Grace. And so I don't know if there's any other Hollywood stars I'll be able to wear a tiara with. So I brought out the big guns today. This is the biggest one I have. So heavy is the head that wears the crown. So today we're going to explore Grace Kelly. Well, hello, Michaela. How are you, Michaela? Always sets up these just amazing decor and tour related snacks for my old Hollywood. I'm always very impressed. And and, oh well, hello, Yana. Thank you. It's Grace Kelly. Any excuse to wear a tiara. Though I don't know. I don't know if Grace and I are the same caliber of princess because 5 minutes ago I was mopping my floors in my tiara. I don't know if she did that, but maybe, but this may be the last old Hollywood star that Well, hi Kat, hi Nat, Yana. I have three. They range in size. Yes, you do need one. All girls should own a tiara. And let me tell you, I told this story when I did, I think I told it when I did Audrey Hepburn, that oftentimes I would wear a tiara for no apparent reason at all. And I would forget that I had it on and like go out to check my mail. And people know that you have to get your own, but I'll send you a link. But the tiaras cannot be shared. Tiaras or puppies or mimosas on Sunday. No, 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 no. I'll share boys. I'll share money. I'll share food. I'll share my house. But my tiaras, my dogs, and my champagne, no way. So, anyways, I go outside and check my mail, forgetting I had a tiara on. And my neighbors, if I would run into them, would start talking to me, but they would all be looking from here up. And I thought, oh, that's kind of rude not to make eye contact. And then it would dawn on me. And I'd go, oh, I'm wearing a tiara, aren't I? So, tiaras and I go way back. So this one, I really love it. And it wasn't honestly all that expensive. So let's get started on Grace Kelly. A little bit of housekeeping. If you're joining this, uh, obviously there is the live chat. If you're watching it as a video replay, welcome. You should have joined it when it was live, and you could have interacted in the chat. So occasionally, if you are watching this as a video replay, you will hear me interacting with people in the chat. Hello, Jemima. Where's your tiara? Where's your tiara? Okay, Mama's got to get this stuff done. So, anyways, let's get started on Grace, shall we? So, known as one of the most beautiful women in the world, Grace Kelly was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She was born into a very, hello, Mary Lou, welcome, good timing. We're just getting started. She was born into a very prosperous family. And though she was a shy child, she would live her life in the public eye. By age 23, her talent and undeniable beauty took her to Hollywood, where she would make 11 films in 3.5 years. She was one of the most sought after actresses of her time, working with some of Hollywood's most important directors and co-starring with its top leading men. At 26, she gave it all up. All the glitter, all the glamour of Hollywood. She said goodbye for a real life fairy tale when she married Prince Rainier of Monaco and became Her Serene Royal Highness of Monaco. Let's explore the life and death of Grace Kelly. Grace Patricia Kelly was born November 12th, 1929 in Philadelphia. She was born to Jack Kelly Sr. and Margaret Major Kelly. Her father, Jack, won a gold medal for rowing, and there's a statue erected for him that the citizens of Philadelphia had erected for him. His father, Jack's father, Grace's grandfather, had been a bricklayer from Ireland who made a fortune in construction and brickmaking. Young Jack soon joined the family business. He went on to start his own business and made his own fortune, but always expressed a lot of pride in his family's humble origins. Jack Kelly believed that the world was what you made of it. And Margaret Major, Grace's mother, was a former model and a champion swimmer and athlete. Margaret and Jack were determined to raise their kids their own way. If you're determined enough, you're sure to reach the top, was a phrase that the Kelly children heard often growing up. Jack Kelly was almost militant in constantly drilling into his children, be the best, be the best. The world can be what you make of it. It's up to you. You can do it. You're a Kelly. Be the best. He, I really believe, had a philosophy that second place was the first loser. And so these kids grew up in a very competitive um, family home, a very loving family home, a very well off family home, but very, very, very competitive. And if you wanted Jack's attention, their father, you had to be the best. And that would be hard for four kids, right? Because four kids in any competition, four people in any competition, only one person's going to come in number one. So that's, but that was the mentality of Jack and Margaret. And that was how the kids were raised. Um, Peggy, Jack, and Grace, and Lisanne, who is the youngest, um, we're all a very close knit family. Out of all the Kelly children, Grace was the least competitive. She was very shy. Her siblings described her as a mama's baby. She was sweet, and look at how cute she was. She was sweet, soft, and loved to be held and cuddled and kissed. And it said that in order to get a picture of Grace when she was young, uh, her mother would hold her and then lean way out of the camera angle so that Grace wouldn't cry over being taken away from her mom. The family had a place at the shore, and it was there that they spent their happiest times together. Grace would forever love being by the sea. Lisanne, Grace's younger sister, has said that they were a very competitive family and that they most certainly got that from their mother and father, who instilled a sense of competition and drive to be the best in them, like we already discussed. Grace's siblings embraced this, but here's where Grace stood out. While the other Kelly children all had a great love of sports, Grace preferred to sit alone and often for hours, creating stories and scenarios and then playing them out and trying, often unsuccessfully, to get her brother and her sisters involved when she could. For the Kelly children, growing up wealthy meant winter skiing in Lake Placid, the best private schools, and working hard for charities that you believed in. This started young for the Kelly children, modeling in charity fashion shows. Grace loved any and all of these opportunities to be on stage, and apparently developed pretty young a great love of the theater. And she was encouraged in this by her uncle George, who was just like Grace was very different from her siblings, George was very different from his brother Jack. Where Jack was very strong and athletic and driven and determined and competitive, George was more sensitive and introspective and just had a great love of all things theatrical. George was a playwright. He directed plays, and Grace was fascinated by all of the stories and endless excitement of the theater. Um, and George was very nurturing, and he was just a kind, creative, and nurturing man. And Grace's sister Lisanne has said that she felt that that was the type of man that Grace kind of held as an ideal, her uncle, not somebody competitive and athletic and so determined as her father was. While Grace loved the theater, Grace's father, Jack, believed that Peggy, the oldest child, was going to be the star of the family, as well as Jack, who Jack was the only son, uh, uh, as well as Jack, who did become a very talented athlete. But Jack Kelly really struggled to understand Grace. Uh, she was just a shy, sensitive dreamer. Grace adored her father, despite the fact that he truly didn't understand her and therefore spent more time with his other children. Grace's parents were shocked when 18-year-old Grace announced that she wanted to go to New York to study acting. Now, her father, Jack, didn't believe that there was any future in acting. In fact, it's said that he was quoted as once telling her, "You're not going to amount to anything. None of this is going to amount to anything. You're going to fall flat on your face." He just didn't get it. But her mother, Margaret, said to Jack, her husband, she said, "Jack, come on, let her go. Let's just let her go and get it out of her system. It's not going to amount to anything. You're right about that. And it's not as if she's going to Hollywood." She said, "I mean, for heaven's sake, it's New York. What could possibly come of this?" Uh, so in 1947, and I kind of have to chuckle at that, right? I mean, really. So in 1947, Grace was accepted into the American Academy of Dramatic Arts and supported herself by modeling. She assembled a portfolio and little by little started getting jobs. She also appeared in some commercials, mostly portraying the girl next door that all men hoped they could marry. After graduating from the academy, Grace found parts in stock theater companies and landed her first professional role in her Uncle George's play, The Torchbearers. And then she went on to her first Broadway role in The Father. The entire family went to see the opening night. One of her first leading roles was on live television in The Rich Boy, and her performance was flawless. Grace was given a small role in the movie 14 Hours. Oh, hello, my world. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We got started about 10 minutes ago. Welcome, enjoy, settle in. Grace's life is fascinating. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the crew. Well, hi, Ronnie. Welcome to you too. Uh, Settle in. We're having a blast. I hope everyone's wearing their tiara. Uh, so Grace was given a small role in the movie 14 Hours, and she was hardly noticed. She returned to television and stock theater to further hone her craft. And then her big break came almost by chance. She had landed a young agent, Jay Cantor, and after meeting him in the reception line of his own wedding, he was intrigued by her photos and background, and he was really intrigued by the fact that she made it perfectly clear she was not interested in any long-term contracts with any of the major studios. Um, I think she kind of had a feeling that were she to sign to a long-term contract, it's not as if she was particularly savvy in show business. She was brand new and she was just a baby. Um, but I think she had a feeling that it would be like selling her soul. And if she signed a long-term contract with studios, they would own her. And she was right, they would. And then she wouldn't get to pick and choose her roles. And she was right about that. But every young actor and actress in Hollywood, that was the dream, was to have a long-term studio contract. And so Jay Cantor he was like, well, who is this? What is this about? He sent her photo to Stanley Kramer, who was a young producer at the time and who Jay had introduced to Marlon Brando at the time that Kramer was casting for High Noon. Kramer summoned her for an interview, and she arrived wearing white gloves for a part in a Western. And Stanley was really kind of taken aback by this. But her sister, Lisanne, said that was something that had been drilled into them by their mother, who insisted that whenever they went into town or to any kind of important event, they were to wear hats and gloves. Grace didn't believe she did very well in the film, and Stanley Kramer, the producer, later admitted that he didn't think she had done very well either. Kramer said he believed that part of this was due to her being miscast, saying that she'd been really miscast because Gary Cooper was far too old for her. Now, Cooper went on to win an Academy Award for his role in 1952, but there were absolutely no accolades for Grace. She promptly headed back to New York for more study. She was a Kelly, and she had to do better. Ma'am, that's not contributing. Would you like to rethink that? Thank you. Always. But get your own show. Why don't you? I'll help you set up a YouTube channel after. Okay. Grace was eager for the lead role of Roxanne in the play Cyrano de Bergerac. She didn't get it. She honestly never got any more roles on Broadway after The Father. But in true Kelly spirit, she picked herself up and went on. Grace then put all of her efforts into securing a role in Magumbo, starring opposite Clark Gable. Oopsie, go back. The picture was to be filmed in Africa by fellow Irishman director John Ford. In fact, she wanted the role so badly that, much to Jay Cantor's shock, hi Tish, welcome. Grace is just getting going in Hollywood, so you showed up with great time. Jay Cantor, her agent, was shocked by how badly Grace wanted this role, that she was willing and actually did sign a long-term contract with MGM. Her role, now we're just going crazy with these slides. Her role in Magumbo earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress in 1953. Though she did not win. Hello, Matthew. Welcome. While critics were describing her as a rising star, Grace's parents still were not convinced that Hollywood was a place for their daughter to be on her own. And so they sent her younger sister, Lisanne, this is Lisanne, Lissy, as Grace would call her. They sent Lisanne out west to live with her and be a companion chaperone of sorts. Well, thank you, Tish. You know it's Grace Kelly, so I had to break out the goods. Might be my last chance to wear a tiara. I got to wear one with Audrey. But that's okay. I'll mop the floors in it like I did earlier. Hollywood execs were mystified by Grace. She rarely accepted their dinner invites, turning them down when she should have been rushing at the chance to sit by A-listers, opting instead to return home after a day at the studio, grab a burger, which her sister had said was her very favorite meal, and then do a little reading and head to bed. Some in Hollywood were put off by what they considered a cold and aloof exterior, but Alfred Hitchcock may have described her personality the best, stating her apparent frigidity was like a mountain covered in snow, but that mountain was in truth a volcano. In 1953, Hitchcock found his perfect Carolyn when he cast Grace opposite Ray Milland in Dial M for Murder. I'm gonna tell you something. You're right, Miss Cat can do, and like I explained earlier, I used to wear my tiaras all the time, and I'm gonna get back in the habit. Just gonna start keeping one on the nightstand and on the end table by my chair, and maybe I'll put one over there on the coat rack by the door, so I'll remember. Let me tell you, I have never been an Alfred Hitchcock fan. Was exceptionally turned off after watching Psycho and The Birds. He just never did it for me. But yesterday, I watched Dial M for Murder and To Catch a Thief, and they were wonderful. If you have not seen them, oh, do it. Do it. They were absolutely marvelous. Marvelous. Uh, Grace did not disappoint in this role. Grace Kelly had, oh, Tish says try North by Northwest. Well, let me have a sip of my mimosa and ponder that. Okay, I will. Grace truly had arrived. And yet you're right, Ronnie. Ronnie Lynn says that she loves his movies, but he was a creep. He was kind of creepy, and he would get very fixated on certain actresses, um, calling them his muse. I think his wife was very obliging, um, and probably looked the other way a lot. I'm not saying that he had affairs with them. Right? Just ask Tippi Hedren. He would become very fixated and and only want, um, he would become so fixated on a certain actress. That was the only actress he would want for every film. And then he would kind of have to move on if they had other roles that they had to play, right? Um, but yeah, I've never been a fan, but Dial M for Murder and To Catch a Thief were absolutely phenomenal and really kind of turned my head a little bit, um, in terms of his artistic ability, which I think most people would say is kind of undeniable. So Grace Kelly had arrived. She was appearing on the covers of magazines, attending movie premieres, but all of this meant spending more time in Hollywood. And Grace was really a family person, right? Uh, but the roles were rolling in. Uh, she was next cast with Hitchcock again in Rear Window. And then Grace really had her eye on a role, The Country Girl, but she had signed that long term contract. So she had to make a couple other films for MGM. She was really especially mad about a film called Green Fire, which she did not want to film. She was beside her. She was so mad. I think she was partially mad at herself because her reasons for not ever wanting to sign that long term contract, those reasons were really coming into fruition, right? Here she was being forced to do a role. In fact, she told her sister, "This is not what I became an actress to do." Um, Funnily enough, because she was acting in movies, right? Uh, so she had to do Green Fire, and then she went on to do The Bridges of Toko Ri, starring opposite of William Holden. She was okay with that. She had always long admired Holden, and so she was okay with that one. The movie Country Girl, she starred opposite of Bing Crosby. While it is not one of the movies that Grace was best known for, it did. I mean, look at her. Grace is such a beautiful woman, just a classic beauty, undeniably beautiful. And she, look at her in The Country Girl. She looks frumpy. She looks old, a little, maybe a little haggard. But it won her the only Academy Award of her career. At 24, she was pronounced one of Hollywood's major stars, and it seemed she had it all. Yet she was still seeking her father's approval, and it wasn't forthcoming. Now, Grace hadn't dated much in Hollywood, but in 1955, when her younger sister Lisanne got married, there's Grace as one of the bridesmaids in Lissy's wedding. Uh, Grace started thinking, hey, I want to get married too. And when Lisanne got pregnant, announced her pregnancy the next year, Grace said, Lissy, you're having a baby. I want a baby. Hello, Lori. Your Rear Window. I was going to watch that last night too, and then I just kind of ran out of time. I was really, I went right from To Catch a Thief into Dial M for Murder, and then I was going to roll right into Rear Window. And, but it was like 10:30, quarter to 11. I knew I had to do this today, so I put that off. I may do it this afternoon, though. Still have a lot of something. So Grace was really starting to think that she would like to get married and she would like to start a family. And she certainly would have had her choice of suitors. But in 19, oh, you know what? It's time for our next set of slides. Well, we whipped through those 100, didn't we? In 1955, Grace would make the movie that would change her life, starring opposite Cary Grant in To Catch a Thief. I'm telling you, first of all, he's so dashing. He's so handsome. He's debonair. I mean, look at that. Hubba, hubba, hubba. Unca man right there. She starred opposite Cary Grant in To Catch a Thief, and the movie was filmed in the Principality of Monaco, once again being directed by Alfred Hitchcock. A French magazine had determined that the palace in Monaco would be a perfect backdrop for a publicity shoot. And Prince Rainier, who was openly searching for a wife, indicated that he was willing to meet the beautiful movie star. In fact, it said that Marilyn Monroe was chomping at the bit to become Prince Rainier's princess. I cannot even imagine how that would have turned out. But at any rate, that's not what happened. Here's Prince Rainier at a news conference, I guess, and he's kind of chuckling because the reporters are asking him, oh, so we heard you recently met Grace Kelly. Yes, I met Grace Kelly. Oh, and no, ma'am. I told you have to wait for your own show. It's windy out. So everything's blowing around out there and it's making them, I'd say crazy, but we'll just say crazier than normal. Anyways, he was kind of chuckling because the reporters were trying to get something out of him. And they're saying, so you met Grace Kelly. Oh, and you're openly looking for a wife. And and so if you were gonna, marry somebody, what would this person look like or be like? And so he's just chuckling. He's not gonna answer them. But he indicated when she was going to go to the palace for the photo shoot that he was willing to meet the beautiful movie star. He was look, Prince Rainier was known for being a very shy and humble man, but he was also known to be one of Europe's most eligible bachelors. And his meeting with Grace immediately provoked public interest. Yeah, Prince Rainier, Prince Charming. I think so too. I think he was a very handsome man. Uh, when asked what type of woman he'd most like to marry, Prince Rainier said, the best. Well, come on. Being the best was a Kelly family motto. And though Grace had reached the top of her career, for Grace there had to be something more to life. MGM had no idea what the future would hold for Kelly when they cast her in the next role in the movie The Swan. The story was based on a play about a princess of a family of banished nobles who hope to marry her to a distant cousin, Prince Albert, who is openly searching for a wife. One Monday morning, Grace went into L.B. Mayer's offices at MGM and said, Mr. Mayer, I'm getting married. To which he replied, well, that's wonderful, Grace. I'll hold a big reception for you upstairs and we'll invite everyone in Hollywood. To which Grace replied, Mr. Mayer, I don't think you quite understand. Grace Kelly had accepted the proposal of Prince Rainier. Her parents were thrilled. There they all are. Her parents were thrilled. The world was in awe of this real life fairy tale. When Grace was asked by reporters if she was going to continue to make movies, here she is at the news conference where they asked her, are you going to continue to make movies after the wedding? She simply said, that decision will be made by the prince. When Prince Rainier was asked during this news conference, you can see the look on his face. And he said, they asked him, will Miss Kelly still continue to make movies after the wedding? He said, I don't think so. Kelly's sister, Lisanne, has said Rainier fit in beautifully to the family. She even talked about a time when her and her husband invited Grace and Rainier over to their apartment for dinner. And Rainier even got up and helped do the dishes after dinner was over. In 1956, Grace would make her last Hollywood movie, High Society. And this was really a kind of comedic role. In this role, right there, she proudly wore her actual new engagement ring from Rainier. She was at the apex of her career when she could have called all the shots. Grace was walking away from Hollywood for love. Now, I have to say this. I was extremely surprised to find out that the Kellys, Grace's parents, were asked to pay a dowry to Prince Rainier. And Jack Kelly was said to have been far from amused. But in the end, the $2 million, that was a lot of money in 1956. Yes, this little poor California girl, it's still a lot of money today. Today, that would be roughly worth about $24.3 million. So It was that was a lot, even for the Kellys. So in the end, of course, the Kellys and Grace paid with $1 million coming out of what she what she would have inherited from her parents. So kind of her portion out of her siblings' inheritance at that time, and then Grace paid the the other 1 million out of her earnings. Uh, Grace was entering, let's face it, she was entering a whole new world. On April 14th, 1956, Grace set sail for Monaco, embarking on an 8-day voyage across the Atlantic with friends and family on her way to her wedding with Prince Rainier. There's everybody waving her off. Uh, Grace had never really enjoyed the stardom part that came with her Hollywood career, but now she was going to face a mountain of it. Uh, International publicity. Um, she was really heading into some serious uncharted waters. The international publicity and interest was just overwhelming, I would have to imagine, for a 26-year-old girl. That's what she was. It was a staggering feat to manage it all. And her closest friends marveled at her ability to handle the pressure. It seemed she was truly living up to her name. There is Prince Rainier's, the royal yacht, guiding her into Monaco. Once in Monaco, the media madness just ensued, coupled with public curiosity. Look at all those people showing up. They came by the thousands to both welcome and judge her. She was rich, she was beautiful, but could she become a princess to many of the people of Monaco? Monegasques, they're called. Uh, to many, she was just an actress. And some of them wanted her to fail. It must have been so overwhelming for her in the days leading up to her wedding. And listen, she landed in Monaco, and 1 week later was the wedding. That's a lot. Can you imagine? Dress fittings, rehearsals, meeting with heads of state, dinner parties. I mean, it must have just been a whirlwind. There was an endless round of parties and publicity, as well as rehearsals for the royal wedding, all which went off without a hitch. Look at that. So Lori says, I always wondered if she really loved him or if he was an easy way out of Hollywood. Looking like a winner at 26. She would have had maybe 4 more years that she could have been the young beauty back then. Well, I wondered too, but by the time I was done researching this, I didn't wonder anymore. I think this was a love match. This was really a fairy tale. Oh, you caught that one, huh, Tish? Yeah, I don't think that he was there. So I think the wedding really did go off without a hitch. Um, even when I looked at their wedding pictures like this, and I thought, oh gosh, they both look so miserable. Well, then you have to look at it in the different context of they weren't miserable. This is very, very serious. He was the monarch of a country, an entire country. Now, albeit a small country, but he still was a head of state. This wedding wasn't going to be your wedding at your church with your pastor and your sorority sisters and your intended fraternity brothers and all that stuff and jokes and no, this was very serious and the world was watching. So, but I had to kind of dial it back because I was thinking, oh, she doesn't look like she's in love at all. But you have to remember, she didn't need to marry him. She didn't need to marry him at all. Her career was going swimmingly well. She didn't need to leave Hollywood. He was getting pressure from advisors and the public about a wife, finding a wife. Come on, let's get on with it. Start a family, produce an heir. You're a monarch. This is about the monarchy. Grace didn't have that pressure. I think it was really a love match. I think it was really a love match. Okay, here we go. And see, look, now that the wedding's done and they're leaving the church, going back to the palace, look at the looks on their faces. Completely different because the pressure is off, right? They don't have to be as solemn as they were in the church. And if you look at any of the royal weddings, look at William and Kate, very solemn, very serious in that moment. And then you see them after on the balcony, and it's a completely different vibe. So I had to dial my judgment back and really appreciate the situation for the serious situation that it was. So there they are leaving the church, going to the palace. They're going to do their little kiss on their balcony. And then Princess Grace and Prince Rainier embarked on a 7-week honeymoon. 7 weeks. Undoubtedly, this was the most time they had spent together in the year of their engagement, right? 7 weeks on a yacht in the middle of the Mediterranean. You know, I've gone on cruises for a week, and you would not believe the amount of luggage I take. I cannot imagine for 7 weeks. There they go. You know, I look at these old pictures of the royal yacht, which I'm sure, I have no doubt, was absolutely fabulous. But God, it looks like an oil tanker, doesn't it? I'm like, we can do better than that. Some of Grace's friends have said that as they watched her board the yacht for her honeymoon, they realized that there was no more Grace Kelly, the actress. She had been replaced by Her Serene Highness Princess Grace of Monaco. Several stated that they worried for her, being alone in a foreign country, left to navigate not just the language barrier, but the complexity of the royal life and protocol and customs and the principality. She tackled it much as she had done with her acting career. She studied, studied, studied. She learned the language in order not to become completely overwhelmed. She did her best to simplify things where she could. For instance, she had her hairdresser make her several pieces of hair attachments so that when she and Prince, look at that hair attachment right there, so that when she and Prince Rainier traveled, rather than having to find a hairdresser wherever she was, She was always ready for any event. And I think Prince Rainier must have been overjoyed by this, by the way she kind of tackles, by the way she broke things down and simplified them. Well, simple doesn't mean it's not good enough. Simple simply means let's not overcomplicate what we could simplify. And that's what she did. So where she could control, she did control. Where she could contain, she did contain. And I'm sure that that gave her a sense of comfort. I think it would. Oh my goodness. It's the. Ma'am, do, do you want a royal dog funeral? Go over there and think about that. Oh, these animals. It's a zoo in here. Uh, so Grace was taking her out. Excuse me, ma'am. It's the wind. I can't stop it. God, ma'am. We'll just put you here at the head of the class and see how you like that. So Grace was taking some of the lessons she had learned in her acting career, such as improvisation, and she was using that to guide her through situations when she was unsure of herself, much as any good actress would. In every situation, whether it be with other royals or popes, she was expected to be perfect, and she was determined to make a success of it. On August 3rd, 1956, Princess Grace and Prince Rainier announced they were expecting their first child. And on January 23rd, 1957, Princess uh, Princess Grace gave birth to their daughter, Princess Caroline Louise Marguerite. Fun fact, and I'm going to show you some pictures of this after we're done with some of these slides. During her pregnancy, Princess Grace always walked with a Hermes bag, uh, covering her stomach in order to kind of an attempt to shield it from the press. And this resulted in Hermes naming the bag after her, which is, of course, the much sought after Kelly bag. Just there's the crowds showing up to see the first royal baby, Princess Caroline. And just 15 months later, on March 14th, 1958, a male heir was born. Prince Albert Alexander Louis Pierre Grimaldi. Say that 3 times real fast. And later, in 1965, quite a bit later, the royal family would be completed with the birth of Princess Stephanie Marie Elizabeth. Grace was thoroughly in love with and devoted to her children. And though she lived an ocean away from her family, she and Rainier did often travel to Philadelphia. They did go to things like her parents' anniversary and her siblings' birthdays, or whenever they could. If there was a new addition to the family, they would travel to meet niece and nephew. Excuse me, ma'am. You need to come back over here. Oh, now there's somebody outside now. Okay. Oh my goodness. Now you have to sit with mother. Now you have to sit with and see what you did there. You're being disruptive. A disruptive force of nature. Okay. She was completely devoted to her children. And though she lived an ocean, like I said, though she lived an ocean away from her family, they came often. Private time was, there they are, with the family in Philadelphia. private time was essential to both Grace and Rainier. And it was also family time was a much loved and much needed break from royal life. I mean, you can see them here on the beach with their children. There's no royal attendance, right? Uh, Look at that beach setup. That's a hot mess. That is a hot mess. I don't know who set up that tent, but it wasn't any ladies in waiting. I'll tell you that much. Uh, Grace was determined that her family life was going to be a success. No matter how demanding her role as princess was, she always made time for her children. And there were numerous trips to America, such as this one, for her parents' wedding anniversary. Uh, like I said, birthdays, anniversary gatherings. There were many family trips aboard the royal yacht where Prince Rainier would indulge in his love of fishing. He loved fishing. I, I don't know if he caught that or if he strangled it, but that fish is not pretty. I hope it tasted really good, Prince Rainier. I really hope it did, because there's not much to look at. There was plenty of time set aside for pool parties in the palace pool. There's Grace playing baseball. There is Grace with Caroline and Albert and Stephanie. But there's plenty of times for set aside for pool parties in the palace pool with friends and family. Grace maintained as many of her old friends in her new life as she could. She was determined to remain Grace Kelly of Philadelphia while embracing Princess Grace of Monaco. She was a princess with a thoroughly American heart. And friends say that though through it all, she had somewhere in the back of her mind kept the possibility of maybe returning to acting, tucked away back in her head. And her former agent Jay Cantor said that he often sent her scripts that he thought she'd be interested in. But it was Alfred Hitchcock um, who approached her for a role in the movie Marnie, that prompted Grace to go to Prince Rainier. And she told him that she really wanted to do the movie. And if you've ever seen the movie with Nicole Kidman, Grace of Monaco, that movie is really centered around this exact time. And this was a kind of a troubling time for Monaco. Monaco was having a lot of problems with France. Uh, France was kind of upset that they weren't getting any taxes or anything from Monaco. Monaco didn't tax its citizens. Rainier was Jemima, you're choking me out, but you're being good. This was a really troubling time for Monaco. France was threatening to cut off Monaco's supply of electricity and all kinds. It was a difficult time. And so Rainier reluctantly agreed that Grace could star in the movie. And the studio agreed that it would not release any press about her starring in the movie, returning to Hollywood to star, until the palace released a statement. And Rainier was getting a lot of pushback. There was a lot of talk about Grace abandoning the people of Monaco to go back to Hollywood. that maybe she was showing her true self, that she was just an American actress, that she would never be a true princess of the people. And this was really, and it caused a lot of strife in Rainier and Grace's marriage, mostly because of the political pressures that Monaco and Rainier were under. Not really because Grace wanted to go make the movie. That's not where the problem was. Also, at this time, it was found that Prince Rainier's sister and brother-in-law and his brother-in-law had been, um, well, they had been meeting with the French behind Rainier's back. They were trying to make a deal to kind of stage a coup in which Rainier's sister would deliver Monaco to the French, and then she would take over as monarch. They would topple Rainier. So there was a lot going on. And what happened was a statement was released to the press about the movie, and then the public went bananas. She's abandoning us. Uh, she'll never fit in. She'll never be one of us. She doesn't want to be one of us. Just send her back to America. Get her out of the way. She doesn't want to be here. And so Grace ended up calling the whole thing off. Um, the timing just could not have been worse. And so, as I said, if you haven't seen the movie Grace and Monaco, um, when Nicole Kidman did really a fantastic job in it. Um, I encourage you to watch it. Uh, the birth of Princess Stephanie in 1965 really closed that chapter of Grace's life forever. She really, at that point, accepted that uh, it, she was not going to go back to acting. Her life, her home, her family, her purpose was in Monaco with Rainier and helping to rule the principality and raise their children. She threw herself completely into her charitable work and cultural affairs. She was determined to make Monaco truly a cultural capital of the world. She read poetry at a theater in London that was being built to help raise funds. She started the Princess Grace Foundation, which helps raise money for theaters, and she saw to it that a playhouse, as you see right here, uh, was built. Monaco had been without a playhouse. Oopsie, had been without a playhouse for years, and she also saw that a small, excuse me, ma'am, don't start again. She also saw that a small, if you want to call that small, ballet school was transformed into a world-class academy. That's it. Now you have to come back. Now you have to sit with your mother again. You're being really disruptive. Nobody is amused. Look at them. Do they look amused? Yeah, you're ashamed of yourself. You should be. So she saw that this small ballet school was transformed into a world-class academy, and both Princess Caroline and Princess Stephanie studied there. Her love of children inspired her to appear in the 1979 documentary, The Children of Theater Street, which was about young dancers in Leningrad. She worked closely with the Red Cross and various charities while retaining her sense of self and doing the things that she loved. And that kept her grounded. She said that often. She was an avid gardener. She created a gardening club, pressed her own flowers, and had a pressed flower book. I'm going to show you all later. She had her pressed flower creations on display, and some adorned some of Monaco's stamps. And after her death, Princess Rainier created a public rose garden, which was dedicated to her memory. After many years, Grace had truly become a national treasure and was much beloved by the citizens of Monaco. She once said, "I don't wake up in the morning and think, oh, I'm living a fairy tale. I have the job to get done and children to raise." Here you can see Albert and Caroline. Um, and she said, and I have a lot of responsibilities and obligations. If I take on something, I like to do it well and do it completely. Uh, her co-star, her former co-star, James Stewart, said she made just as good of a princess as she did an actress. And it seemed that Monaco finally agreed. On September 14th, 1982, at the age of 52, Princess Grace suffered a stroke while driving herself and Princess Stephanie back to Monaco. She lost control of her 1972 Rover P3500, causing the car to plunge 100 feet off of a steep mountain road. And that is the turn. If you look at how that road makes a V and you go to the bottom of the V, or the kind of the top right of the picture, that is the turn, which is a hairy, scary turn on its own. That's the turn she was trying to make when she suffered the stroke and lost control of the car. And then the car plunged 100 feet. And there, if you look at the very, very top left, you can see that turn that she was trying to make. Listen, there were many rumors surrounding this incident. Initially, reporters were saying that it was brake failure, or some said that perhaps Princess Stephanie had actually been the one driving. And Princess Stephanie was a very inexperienced driver. And so there was like, oh, it was brake failure. Oh, maybe Princess Stephanie was actually the one behind the wheel. But it was confirmed at the hospital that Grace had suffered a stroke, and she actually, when she was taken to the hospital with severe brain and thorax injuries and suffered a second stroke, at that point she was declared brain dead. Prince Rainier was told there was no reasonable chance of recovery. And after consulting with their 3 children, he made the decision to remove her from life support. And she was pronounced dead at 10:55 that night at the hospital that now bears her name, the Princess Grace Hospital Center. On September 18, 1982, Princess Grace was laid to rest in the Grimaldi family vault in the St. Nicholas Cathedral, the Cathedral of Our Lady Immaculate in Monaco. And you can see clear devastation. Princess Stephanie was not able to attend the funeral. It was 4 days after the accident, and she was still suffering injuries. I cannot imagine what that young woman was going through. Look at that. I think that in the end and through it all, I think we can all agree that her life lived up to her name. I really think. So let's look at some pictures of this. Is a picture of one of the areas of the public rose garden that Prince Rainier had dedicated to the memory of Princess Grace. He did that in 1984, so just 2 years after her death. And it really looks like a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. This is some of her pressed flower work. There she is working on it. You can tell she really loved it. That is her book, My Book of Flowers, Princess Grace of Monaco. There's some of the stamps with her image on it, stamps of Monaco. That is a commemorative golden stamp. There she is when she was pregnant with Princess Caroline. We talked about that in the Hermes bag in front of her belly, trying to shield it from the press. And there is the much coveted Kelly bag by Hermes. In 2016, Prince Albert, not Princess Albert, Prince Albert bought Grace Kelly's former childhood home in Philadelphia. He bought it not as a museum or anything like that, though he had it restored to the way that it looked in the 50s. He bought it to keep it in the family, and it's also the home of the Prince Albert's offices for his foundation. So they did an amazing, when you consider he bought it in 2016 and they restored it to the way it looked in the 1950s. They did a pretty amazing job. And I love this little, I would call it a little sunroom, but I really love that. And I love that he did that. And so that's what it is. It is a family home, and it's he bought it so that it would stay in the family. There is Princess Grace and Prince Rainier with Princess Caroline and Princess Caroline, excuse me, and Prince Albert on the front porch of that family home in Philadelphia. There they are on their wedding day. There they are as a family. And look at that. That's joy. That's joy after a wedding. I mean, that's real joy. And I think, like my role said, and relief, joy and relief. They got through it, they got the job done, and now let's have some fun. How is Princess Grace? Thank you all for coming. We need some champagne. We all need some champagne after living through that and the knucklehead dogs. Phew, phew. We did it. The next. Oh, thank you, Natalie. Oh, your mom would have loved it too. She's probably watching that. She's probably watching. Thank you all for coming. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. And drum roll. Our next, Old Hollywood. And this was by popular demand. So I'm going to tell you it was neck and neck. The next Old Hollywood will be on Fred Astaire. That's who won the poll in the Facebook group. But it was so close. I mean, there was a couple of times Katharine Hepburn was ahead, and then Fred Astaire would eke ahead, and then Katharine, and then they were tied, and then Fred won it by, I think, one. So I can tell you that while Fred Astaire is next, Katharine Hepburn will be after him. I wonder if she did any movies with a tiara. Don't think Fred did, so I'm probably out of luck for the next one. But maybe Katharine did one. So that's who's going to come up next. Keep your eyes on the calendar and the group. Yes, he's gonna show us how he sauntered and and danced his way into our hearts and onto the big silver screen, and I cannot wait. Thank you all so much. Go have the best rest of your day that you can, and I will see you on the next stream. Bye-bye, everybody.